Hello everybody and welcome back to LMM, and if you're enjoying what you're seeing on the channel at the moment, how about giving this video a like and maybe subscribing to the channel to help us grow. And if you're really enjoying it, how about checking out our Patreon and receiving exclusive content and joining the growing community. Today I'm looking at this. This is an NSU RO80 built in 1974, and the reason I'm looking at it is that this is one of the worst cars I've ever seen. This is currently parked in my friend's workshop, as they bought it because they wanted the engine out of it. And last year, as I owe them many favours, I was asked to go all the way up to Scotland, just north of Inverness, and to go pick this thing up. And so I did. Oh wow, look at the rocks at the back of it. This is a weird bridge. We're actually going, we've gained height, so the bridge finishes higher up than it started. Okay then, it's fine, I can work that. My first clue that this may not have been the finest example of the breed was when we started to load it up onto the trailer and found that one of the wheels was pointing in a completely different direction to the other wheels, which meant that we had to keep getting the crowbar out to punch that wheel around. And once it was on, I strapped it down, checked my straps, and we headed off on our way back down south. And it is now snowing. It is March, and the snow is coming down. It's only very slight. You can see it just settling on my arm there. So here we go. We're in Scotland. We've got the snow. There's not much of it because I don't actually know where it's coming from. All these American weird places. These have obviously been used in a film when there are American things. There's an American Taxi. All interesting cars that we don't get to see in the UK, which have just been nicely put on the trailer for us to have a look at. Appreciate that. Right, so the first disaster. This piece of plastic trim has given up the ghost and fallen off the car. Here we are. This is the mighty 999 miles, ticking over to 1,000 miles on this trip. Now, this is a little bit daft. I can't believe that we've actually managed to put this many miles down on the trip. And most notably, we're still not actually back. We're not even fully into East Anglia yet. But here it is, 1,000 miles on this trip. And when we got it back, obviously the thing they wanted was the engine for another project. They didn't want any of this, so the first thing to do was to fire it up and see if it actually worked. So it's been a few weeks since we did the drive to go collect it, and now it's sat here, and we're going to find the big moment of will it fire up and run? And I'm not optimistic. And it did, and that was superb. And that was about a year ago. A few days ago, I received a phone call with, Lawrie, you've got to come and see this. Because this car, technically, when it was together, would be road legal in the fact that it is now exempt from MOT. And I know that the law says that that vehicle has to be in a roadworthy condition. And this one, this really wasn't, and it is genuinely quite superb. Now, there were several indications that this one was indeed a lemon. Notably, when I loaded it up to the trailer, that the front suspension was held together with some rope. That's normally a bad sign. And secondly, when they went to pull it out from where it's been sitting for the last year and put a rope around the front bumper, as you can see, it's now on the roof because it just went pang and fell off. So yes, it may be not the greatest example of the breed, and it is a genuinely interesting and cool car. One of the weirdest things is this arrangement for the power steering. You can see we have our RAM just over there, the steering box here, fluid, and a weird pendulum that goes straight down to the track rod ends. It's very, very strange. And while we're looking in here, you can see that the rot has already taken hold, and a lot of it is looking quite sorry. Particularly, and what gives you a good indication of what is to come, is the way that some of it has been repaired. At the front here, the rot hasn't been cut out so much as just a piece of alley patched over the top. And yes, it does get worse. So let's lift it up in the air and I can show you some of my favourite points and we can see just how bad this was. And before we go up, I do want to point out just how very rotten it is. This was all bolted in, but it's not. And again, this is not the worst of it. This is a standard, it's just rotted away brake. In here, it gets really special. Plus, I think you'll appreciate the calibre of the work that's been carried out. Now, you can see this car hasn't really been loved, but as we get higher, you start to notice some of the repairs that have been done, and it gives you an idea of the calibre of that, because this is just tin work. In fact, we can still see some of the branding of whatever tin was used for this. And the kind of, I mean, this is making my Moggy look good. Most importantly on this is this isn't welded. That has just been screwed in with standard tech screws. They have just been pushed in there and hoped that they'll go in there. Most importantly, you can also see that the whole car is starting to sag. If you open the doors then don't go back in properly, which is a good indication of how bad it is. But just, oh, that's why the tin was on the side. Wow, that's awful. And it gets better underneath. Because again, that's not welded, that's just, it's been bolted into that. It's not even a decent surface to attach it to, it's just been, oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, it gets so much worse. Being underneath, there are a whole host of wonderful bodges and repairs, or rather lack of repairs. Now, the one that is the most shocking and the one that scares me and the owner of this abomination the most is this over here. Now, where the chassis should come forward from here, it no longer does. So you have 3 bolts that just float in the air. They were meant to go through the chassis as they do on this side here, which means the wishbone is completely loose to fly around, apart from this incredible little repair here with a single welded on, tacked on piece of bar that's then bent and then tech screwed into the top. That's not a bolt, that is just a self-tapping screw has just been pushed through up into there to hold this together. So the front of that all hinges on one single screw. Now, we're not saying that this was on the road like this, but the guy had been driving it around previously. It was very much sold as spares or repair and the shell is knackered. But this had been at one point drivable, and theoretically you could get away with it. I mean, obviously you are responsible for making sure that your vehicle is safe and legal, and this one clearly is not, but this is the flaw with the MOT exemption, because that is awful, because the whole front leg of the chassis is completely rotten. That's all of this. So everything comes around here up towards the suspension strut tower. All of that is gone. And then as we go back this way, the quality of the repairs continues to amaze me. Even this side is bad. Oh my, you look inside there. When I say the chassis leg is still there, I mean, in spirit maybe. In actual form. This drive shaft is meant to go through the middle, and that's meant to be, there's a piece of foam that's meant to sit inside the chassis here, and that still kind of fits in there, but the metal that goes around it is completely gone. You can see that the front of the chassis leg over here isn't really, well, attached anymore, and all of this, you get a far better idea of this piece of alley, which is well, more structural than the actual thing. More to the point, these, where they come through, they are just bolted in. When you're underneath, you notice there are several of these panels which are tin. And immediately you go, I am suspicious of this, because they are, well, equally just put on, if I unscrew this one, with these self-tapping screws, or self-tapping bolts that go in, which terrifies me. Now, this car was all done to make it look like it was a lot better than it actually was. It even had a very quick repaint. So my initial plan was to unbolt all of these and slowly reveal the damage, and I realised I could just do that and go, oh my god, the floor moves with it. There's not much floor left. That's the main thing. Oh wow, that is the floor. The floor is crusty, and that's terrifying. That's very soft. Oh, what's this even bolted to? There's an. Oh no! Look at this. Is just the most terrifying thing is that it runs all the way along the car. This is all holes that have been patched up. The only thing that's half decent is, oh, well, there's a patch there as well, I'll tell a lie. And on this side as well, it's the whole car. Unless this is not going to be restored, I thought, let's see how bad it is. You say that? It's absolute. There's nothing there. I can't believe just the level of bodge that this is. Oh my god. But that's where the rear subframe mounts in there. Oh, it's full of foam. That's why it's all gone. That whole underside of that's full of foam. But there's... I don't understand how this is still together, because it's... The strength comes down the outside. This isn't meant to be structural. And there's nothing. This is the most amazing and worst bodge I have ever seen on a car. And before you have a go at me saying, oh, somebody could have done that, no, this has been inspected by somebody who does this up commercially, a specialist, and they went, no, it's of no hope. Some of the bits will be used for spares, but all of this. The thing that is genuinely the most scary is the fact that whoever did this obviously had no concept of what they were doing, because anybody who knew anything would look at this and go, that's wrong. So this is just a patch over the top because it's metal. This car carries all of its strength in the seals, and they're not there. What's also terrifying is this chassis leg here that goes to the wishbone over here and bolt on through here. It's missing, as we've said, here because it's held on by this amazing piece there, but there's no chassis leg there. There's no chassis leg, it's gone. This is terrifying. I mean, why somebody bothered to do this in the first place? Was it to drive it? Because if it was, it shows a absolutely criminal lack of understanding of how a car structure works. We've been talking about this, me and the owner of this, and he has restored many cars from pretty bad condition, and his brother restored a Lawrie that had a tree growing through it. But this, we've all agreed, whilst not the worst we've seen, is the worst repairs we've ever seen, trying to cover up damage without doing anything to it. I mean, it just... And also, terrifying back here, these are the bolts for the rear subframe and the mounting for the rear subframe, which is... Well, that's the bolt gone. I've just taken the end of the bolt off. So the rear subframe is falling apart, the connection is falling apart. That's gone. That's gone, and then it's equally as bad in there. So the rear subframe's falling off. The front's not actually attached to the car on one half. I am at a complete loss to this. It's an exceptionally good example of how not to fix a car. In fact, by fixing a car like this, it actually condemns it to a worse fate, because it's gone on, the rot's got worse, it's been covered up, so it's just got worse. The car has got worse, it's fallen apart. It's made it just unsalvageable, because it would need all the sills redoing, all the floor redoing, and of course there aren't patterns or anything available because it's a fairly niche car to start off with, so it all have to be redone. All of this would have to be done. The suspension, it's just, the top half's not too bad and the interior's not too bad. I mean, it has set itself on fire with an electrical fault when they were trying to get it to start inside the car, so that's now knackered. But it's at the stage of it can't be done. You might as well build a new car. There aren't a good enough amount of good spare parts. It's just gone. And as sad as it is, but when you've got bits like this, the whole car is just nothing there. So by putting these on, this car was condemned to be gone. It was possibly bodged to keep it on the road to cover up the holes as they appeared, but the way that it's done, I mean, obviously this car was never particularly good, from the fact that there's all this foam hidden under the floor, and as soon as you get a hole, that foam just absorbs the moisture, and that's the end of it. But yeah, the good news is this makes my stuff look quite good, because yeah, there we go. So that is the worst condition car I have ever seen. And my friends have been restoring cars now for a lifetime, and this is the worst thing they've come across. So let me know in the comments below, have you seen something that's worse than this? Or have you driven something that's worse than this? And for our friends in America, yes, this is bad. This is what we would call bad in the UK. But of course, on the Facebook, show your pictures of anything you found that's worse than this. And of course, with that, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know what you think in the comments. And of course, if you have enjoyed this, coming up on the screen now are a couple of, well, not quite this bad, but other vehicle-related things for you to enjoy. And with that, thank you very much for watching. And it makes you think that maybe for the 40-year-old car, there needs to be not an MOT, but just an inspection to make sure that things like this don't go on the road, because this could end up killing somebody if you were to drive it. But not just you, because it's awful and terrifying, which is the most scary thing about all of this, is that somebody could have driven this about and gone, yeah, it's fine. Because if they don't understand repairs and they've done this, they clearly have no idea what they're doing. Ta-ra!